The looming shadow when the sky fell silent. The ground does not merely shake, it groans with a frequency that vibrates within the human chest, a warning from the deep that arrives seconds before the crust finally fails. In a single violent heartbeat, the bedrock of the American West splits open. A column of superheated ash and pulverized stone screams upward, piercing the stratosphere at speeds surpassing sound. It does not stop at the clouds. It tears through them, reaching a staggering height of 50 kilometers. Below, the states of Wyoming and Montana vanish, not under water or fire, but under a rising, suffocating wall of gray grit that turns a bright Tuesday afternoon into a midnight that smells of sulfur and burnt earth. For centuries, the Earth remains still, hiding a reservoir of molten rage miles beneath the surface. This hidden giant, a supervolcano, operates on a scale that defies human comprehension. When the pressure finally exceeds the strength of the continental plate, the release is not a localized event, but a planetary shift. The initial blast carries the energy of thousands of nuclear devices, yet there is no radiation, only the raw kinetic force of nature reclaiming the sky. The formation of the ash clouds is the first sign of the end of the world as it was known. As the column rises, it begins to flatten against the ceiling of the atmosphere, spreading out in a terrifying mimicry of a mushroom cloud, but one that spans hundreds of miles. In Wyoming, the sun is not set, it is deleted. The particulate matter is so dense that light cannot penetrate it. A person standing 10 miles from the epicenter would see the horizon rise up to meet them, a wave of darkness traveling at hundreds of miles per hour. This is the pyroclastic flow, a mixture of gas and rock so hot it glows in the dark, erasing everything in its path. As the cloud expands, the geography of the United States begins to change. Montana, a land of wide open spaces and jagged peaks, becomes a silent graveyard of ash. The weight of the falling debris is immense. It settles on roofs until they collapse, clogs the engines of every vehicle trying to flee, and turns the very air into a caustic paste that seals the lungs. This is not a storm that passes in hours. This is a transformation of the environment. The once vibrant forests are buried under meters of gray powder, turning the landscape into a lunar wasteland where no bird sings and no wind moves the heavy air. The atmospheric impact of a 50-kilometer ash column is a global death sentence for the current climate. The ash is infused with sulfur dioxide, which reacts with water vapor to create a persistent veil of sulfuric acid aerosols. These particles act as a mirror, reflecting the sun's warmth back into space. Within weeks, the temperature across the globe begins to plummet. This is the beginning of the volcanic winter. In regions thousands of miles away, crops fail as the growing season vanishes. The blue sky becomes a permanent hazy bronze, and the rains turn acidic, scarring the leaves of the plants that survive the cold. Societal structures built on the assumption of a stable environment begin to fracture. The power grids fail first, choked by the conductive dust. Water supplies become undrinkable, turned into gray sludge. Communication satellites, though high above the ash, find their signals scattered and weakened by the ionized particles in the upper atmosphere. Mankind, for all its technological prowess, finds itself huddled in the dark, waiting for a sun that may not provide warmth for a decade. The scale of the event forces a reevaluation of human history. The geological record shows that this has happened before, and it shows that life persists, but only through extreme hardship. The creatures that survive are those that can endure the dark and the cold. For humans, the challenge is not just physical, but psychological. Living in a world where the sky is a constant reminder of the catastrophe above requires a resilience that modern society has rarely been forced to exercise. As the years pass, the heavy ash eventually begins to settle, but the world it leaves behind is unrecognizable. The topography of the West has been rewritten, new mountains of ash have filled the valleys, and the Great Plains are covered in a layer of glass-like dust that will take centuries to turn back into soil. The 50-kilometer column was a brief moment in geological time, a few days of upward fury, but its shadow will linger for generations. It serves as a stark reminder that the ground we walk upon is merely a thin crust over a world of fire, and that the sky we take for granted can be taken away in a single thunderous afternoon. In the end, the Earth settles. The magma chamber, now emptied, collapses into a massive caldera, a giant scar on the face of the planet. The silence that follows is profound. The ash column is gone, but the atmosphere remains thick with the remnant of the blast. Slowly, the first rays of a weakened sun begin to pierce through the haze, hitting a world that is colder, quieter, and vastly different. Survival becomes the only objective, and the memory of the day the Earth went dark becomes the foundation of a new, humbler era of human existence.